Good morning. Welcome to Shop Talk. Something we talk about different topics every day of the week. Today's Friday. And for you lucky souls that don't work weekends, now you're going to get some time off after the end of the day. For us suckers that still work on Saturdays and sometimes Sundays, just another day. So I thought today what we would talk about is one of you asked about the size of a building. What's the minimum size? And we'll go into that. The good idea of having wills and updating them. I know. Who cares what happens after you're gone, right? And finally, what's the parts industry going to look like 2, 3, 4 years down the road? And I don't know. I'm going to talk about different things that I think might happen. So let's start off with the size of the building. Now, I sat here and thought about it before I answered the question. And I'm thinking it depends. It depends on how big I want to get. It depends on, am I going to stock any inventory like ropes and miscellaneous? Am I going to just do repairs? But I still need... I knew a guy that worked out of a 6x10 shed, 7x10 shed. But he did all his work outside on a picnic table. And that's a great way to start. I'm not knocking that guy. You know, he didn't want to get in over his head. But he had no place to work. So I would think the least amount of space would be something that you could do work in, right? So what you're going to want to have is you're going to want to have room for a bench. And you can make that out of simple lumber of, the 2x4s, 2x6s, 2x8s for a flat top, and 2x4 legs holding it up. Something solid to work on. Are you going to have a tool chest like the one behind me? Or are you going to buy just a top box and set it on the bench? Or are you going to have just a regular flip open one that you pull tools out of off the floor? Again, that makes a difference because like that takes up real estate. The top half wouldn't be so bad if you set it, onto something. And that's how we first started out, was we had just the top halves. And we built our own shelving underneath the bench. And then when we burned out, I updated to just getting the full size. And then in our area, out in the shop, Claude, we've got one of these sitting like this. And then from the end of the toolbox over to the wall, and it's a 10-foot section, is a solid workbench. And he has a vise on there that he has a drill press bolted down. Miscellaneous things that do come in handy if you're working on stuff. Now, it's going to also depend upon, are you going to do just weed eaters chainsaws? Are you going to do weed eaters chainsaws, riding lawnmowers? Are you going to do push mowers? Are you going to... See, each one requires more space. And as most of the older guys that have shops can attest to, is you're going to run into ones that you're fixing that you're going to have to sit around and wait for parts. And you got two options. You either got to have enough room to slide it back out of your way, or a place to park them outside. And then location. in our area, I don't have very much problem with theft. If I do, it's somebody trying to get money for drugs. You know, they've resorted to stealing. But most of the young kids know me. And those are the ones that are getting hooked on. Not just the young kids, but that's... And I've always made it well known. Before you steal from me, you come talk to me. Because I would rather give you the money than have you walk away a thief. But there are examples of what I won't give you money for. And that's a drug habit. Or alcoholic habit. You know, something that's going to do harm to you. I'm not supporting somebody else's bad habits. But if you live in Chicago and you're trying to work out of a building out back, I mean, I don't know if you would have problems if you try storing stuff outside and having somebody steal them. Whereas here, I can store 100 machines outside, and I've never had one bothered. So, I mean, that comes into consideration. If I were living in a higher crime rate where I worried about somebody stealing my customers' machines, I would have my building the size, at least the size where I could get it in and lock it, so that I'm not paying the customer for their machine that got stolen. Most homeowners' policies, and that's where people start off, with the homeowners out back working out of their garage or this or that, will not pay for theft unless it's included in the policy. Will not pay for theft if it's somebody else's unit. Why is somebody else's unit at your place? If you have a business policy, like we have here at the shop, it will cover if somebody steals a custom machine, and if something happens where it gets destroyed, run over by a tractor or what have you, my policy will cover that. And that's one thing you guys got to take into consideration when you're starting these smaller shops, is your next step, and making sure that you follow the things that not only I, but other folks that are on the channel can give you good advice on when it comes to insurances and what to expect for rent. And because I can only speak for our location, and one of the big things that I had to put on was liability and coverage, and I have a $5 million policy. You know, it may sound like a lot, but it's not. You get sued once, and watch how fast that policy gets eaten up. So what I responded was, I was thinking 24 by 24. That's the size of my garage up to the house. I've got on the sides, on one side, I've got a full bench, and that's got a vise, and I've got a tool chest, just like the one, like I got one more up to the house, like that sits there. And then the other side of my garage, this is where the walls are built in so far, and I got one garage door. But even if you had two garage doors, you're going to have space on the outer walls. And on the other side, I've got custom built cupboards out of 2x4 and OSB, and that's what I use for all my storage. And then the back wall is, I have pull draws for parts. You know, it used to be, I actually bought it at an auction. They were used in a library, where you pulled it out and you checked to see if the Those were the days, right? Now I'm showing my age, of where you had to look up the card to see if it was there and if it was out and if it got brought back. But there I could see somebody, if they had a 24 by 24, they'd have plenty of space to inventory stuff, store stuff, tool chest, workbench, miscellaneous on the back wall. You could hang stuff on the back wall, and it give you enough space in the center to do quite a bit of stuff. And it would also give you space to set some stuff aside while you're waiting for parts and back orders. And it would also give you space to keep things locked up if you're in a high crime area. Well, what I like some of you older guys to do is jump on that question as well, or in this video here, post comments of what do you think is the bare minimum if you're going to be running a small engine repair business as a side hustle. I'm not talking full time, and neither was he. He was working on just trying to get in. Because I can tell you, if you're going to do a full time, 24 by 24 is not going to cut it. It will not. The space that we've got here, see, it's 20 by 30, so it's 600 square feet in just the shop area. And that's not counting the overflow where we park stuff when we're waiting for parts. And that's not counting where we keep the parts on the walls and other retail stuff to sell. Alright, so you guys just post what you think as far as what would you think would be the bare minimum, because I'm not always right, because I so many things run through my head of, well, location, and are you just going to work on weed eaters and instead of just, and some of you guys may be already doing this out of a shed or something. Please comment. That way these younger guys that are trying to get in, or the older guys that are getting ready to retire, gives them an idea of how big their shed or their building should be. Alright, so we're going to talk about wills. I know, why talk about wills? You're going to be dead anyways, right? Well, wills help out a lot. And I think my first will was, how old was I? 22? I think 22. And it just basically stipulated that if anything happened to me, everything went to my wife. And if anything happened to my wife, everything came to me. And if for some oddball reason or godforsaken reason that we both went at the same time, car accident, what have you, that it would be distributed equally among our kids. All well and good, right? Well, the thing is life changes. And when I say life changes, maybe when you're in your 30s, now you have your own business. You need to update on a regular basis. And I think you should update it yearly, honestly. Well, you're going to tell me, well, I can't afford to. I understand that. When I first started doing the wills up until a couple of years ago, I would amend the original by adding in different things. But what I started doing, prior to that, I had an attorney involved that drew up the will, drew up the amendment, notarized it. With me signing it, you have to be a witness to signing a will, and dating it. So How can I save you money and time? By doing just like I'm doing right now. Create a video. It's only going to take a little bit of your time. You need a camera, a mic. You can buy the camera and mic together, for video conferencing and stuff, or you can buy a mic separately like I have in front of me, like this. But you can sit down at your own leisure and spell out how you want your stuff to be divided. And the way to do it is you start off by saying, who you are. If you're seeing this, I'm dead. And this is my last will and testament. Today is blah, blah, blah. So that you're time stamping it. No one can say it's not you because they're watching you on a video. And you can store that video on a simple jump drive if you wanted. And have that stored in a secure location, and that in the event that something does happen to you, that it will be brought out and used. And if you still want an attorney involved, you can use that jump drive, or you can send the video to your attorney if they're going to be the ones doing the executorship of your, because a lot of people have their attorneys be their executors. Most families have the oldest child be the executor. And it is a great responsibility. I mean, you can't take it lightly. You have to do things the correct way. But by just simply spelling it out in a video, everybody cannot say that's not a real video. Unless lately here with AI making stuff, that AI decides to use me to create another will that's going to give everything to one of my kids and nothing to the other one. You never know. But that's one way that you can do it. And you're going to say, why? Why is it so important? Well, because it less complicates what goes on with your family. I see time and time again, family members get tore apart by each other. And I can use myself as an example that my grandmother had a beautiful place on the water, lots of antiques, and she was kind of the keeper of everything. She was a model when she was younger. She modeled for cigarette companies and she had that carefree spirit. But she got older and she went into assisted living. And she enjoyed it there. She enjoyed talking with other people. Because towards the end, when she was living at home by herself, the button that you have that you push and they call you to see if you're okay, she would do that purposely just to visit with people on the phone for an hour. And our conversations, when her and I would get on the phone, sometimes run 2 to 3 hours. She loved listening to my stories. I loved listening to when she was younger and her advice and stuff. But she still had the properties and she still had all that stuff, even though she had moved into an assisted living facility. Fast forward it. My older brother, my only brother, ended up talking her into leaving a facility that she was enjoying being around other people to move in with him. He didn't have a pot to piss in. And for some reason she decided she'd take a try at it. So she lived there for a short time and she got sick. and she was almost 80. But she ended up going into the hospital. And my brother at the time was working at a hospital where she was located. Now, the way her will was written up, and it had always been for umpteen years, was it was to be divided equally amongst the four of us. I have twin sisters that are 10 months younger than me. And the attorney was going to be the executor. But the night before she passed, and she was on a lot of heavy medications, that my brother somehow created a new will, had her sign it. She was on morphine. Had her sign it, and then two of the nurses that were good friends with my brother acted as witnesses. So not only did we deal with the passing of my grandmother, which was a very great lady, but we were now confronted with my brother letting us know that he was the executor and that he owned everything, and that he didn't have to share anything with us. So every family has somebody like that, or you know of somebody's family that's happened to. Greed is a terrible thing. I couldn't live with myself if I did that. But to this day, my twin sisters have not spoken to him, and that's going on 30 years. Yeah. He built a new house from the sale of the property on the water. Thank you, Grandma. So yes, the wills are important. And if you don't feel comfortable, sitting in front of a camera, then you can write it out and just have somebody witness it, that you signed it and dated it and so forth. But this is the easiest way. This way you can look them right in the eye, as you say it, and it is as it is. Too bad. The other thing when it comes to wills, you're complicating things when you leave it equally amongst, let's say you have two kids. You leave it equally amongst the two kids. And I'm telling you right now, there's going to be clashes this way unless it's spelled out. And the way mine is spelled out is, since I already know that my kids want nothing to do with this shop or the contents. My son might be interested in some of the tools, but other than that, they have different life paths, which is fine. That's great. I want my kids to do what they enjoy doing, and right now they are both doing what they enjoy doing, and that's all that matters. But I'm not going to complicate their life. And the easiest way is just sell it as a whole or auction it off, sell the real estate, and then take the proceeds and split it 50-50. If either one of you want the tools from in here, then you're going to have to buy them out front and then take it from what your proceeds would have been. That's the only fair way to do it. Alright, so hopefully it's kind of spurred some of you guys to think, well, maybe I should. Especially if you've got multi-million-dollar investments and stuff. Now, where is the parts industry going to be in the next few years? And to me, that's a really good question, because I think they're sitting on so much inventory that they're not buying. And at some point, they're going to have to wholesale, and I mean have a fire sale on the inventory they do have, just to get them off the books. They're going to take a loss. Some of the businesses aren't going to survive. Other ones are going to get gobbled up by the bigger guys. But I don't know of any distributor, any manufacturer, other than John Deere, that's going to come out of this unscathed. See, John Deere was smart. A lot of their stuff is proprietary. There's not a lot of stuff out there to put on their machines, in the aftermarket category. I mean, I just had a John Deere Z425 zero turn come in, and it's probably 10, 12 years old. But I couldn't find that deck wheel through the aftermarket companies. It wasn't that expensive. I mean, I went to my local John Deere dealership that were good friends, and it was $8 a piece. And instead of just replacing the one that I wore out, I replaced both of them on the deck. And you want to do the same thing so that you got even wear, so that it's not tipping the deck. You want the deck completely level. So I ended up grabbing two of them while I was there. But I'd like your thoughts on what you think is going to happen. Sorry about the cars going by. Everybody's headed for work. What you think is going to happen to the ones that you've dealt with in the past if you've been at it for a while. And it's not just the small engine repair shops. It's the automobile shops, that parts and stuff. See, now, my son, when he worked for a Ford dealership in sales, he's got some schooling for mechanics too. And what he does, he bounces back and forth between the two as they need him. But they have kind of like the family plan, where I got a heck of a discount from them through his D plan for buying a truck. But my older truck, my dually, was having problems. It was running pretty rough, and we found out pretty quickly that it was I think it's the RGO valve. Don't quote me on that, but it's a diesel. To get that unit through the Ford garage, they quoted me like $700 or $800. I went online on eBay and I bought one for $160. And when it showed up on my doorstep, it was an OEM Ford part. And they were good enough to take the part that I had in and fix the truck. But the thing is that I said, why don't you guys source your parts through some of these outlets that are sitting on these older parts that they bought up at either auctions or what have you, and they're peddling them. They're OEM Ford. It's not like you're putting on an aftermarket. And the dealership couldn't do that. They had to strictly buy from Ford. They were a Ford dealership. All their parts had to come through Ford. Even though I could have saved them a good chunk of money, and even if they tacked some on, and let's say you sold it for $350, that's half of what it would have cost had the garage bought it. Just by me buying it. All right. So give me your thoughts on that, because I think you're going to see some people, some of these businesses fail. Some of them getting gobbled up. They can only keep going just so long. If we're not buying parts from them as dealers, where are they going to get rid of these parts? Granted, there's still some of you guys that are dealing with aftermarket companies and through the OEMs instead of going direct through eBay or Amazon, you know. That's understandable, but from the talks I've had with at least 5 different companies, they're worried big time about their jobs. And these are sales guys, you know, the higher up, the senior management sales, yeah, they're worried. And when they're reaching out to me for advice, I know they're really concerned, and they're trying to figure out what their next move will be. So on that note, you guys have a great weekend and a great Friday. Like I say, you can buy a simple camera with a mic on it for probably under 20 bucks on eBay. And if you've got Microsoft, you can use their program to edit your video, or you can leave it just there's a lot of different ones out there that you can create videos from. And what I use is OBS 29.1.1, and that's a studio version, and that's complicated, but it's what works best for me. If you have Microsoft Office, which most of us do, you also have what they call Clipchamp. And Clipchamp home version, you can create a video, create an audio, you can do what you want with it, and then just upload it. But there's a lot of videos out there on what software is available. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of free stuff out there. So you haven't got to go buy something. I would buy something if you're doing videos on a regular occasion, but if you're just updating a will, you don't need all the bells and whistles. All you need is something that has good visual, good audio, and you're golden. And don't forget, you guys, put down what you feel is the size of a building to get started out in. And some of you guys that are just getting started out, what size is your building? And what size would you wish it would be? Alright guys, catch you on the next one. See you Monday.